The great hall of the Galactic Federation fell silent as Elder Gray walked slowly to the speaking platform. His old bones ached with each step, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. The assembled council members watched with mixed expressions. Some showed respect, others barely hidden impatience. Elder Gray knew what they thought of him. The young ones saw him as a relic of the past, someone whose time had long gone. But today, he had to make them listen. The future of the Federation depended on it. "Honorable Council," he began, his voice stronger than his appearance suggested. "I come before you today with a warning about your planned expansion into the Sol system." Whispers filled the hall. Commander Stone, the young and ambitious leader of the expansion fleet, didn't bother hiding his smile. "Elder Gray," he said, "we appreciate your concern, but our scouts have confirmed that the Sol system contains only one inhabited planet with a developing species. They've barely reached their moon." "That's exactly what we thought 300 years ago," Elder Gray replied, his eyes scanning the room. "My species encountered them then. We thought as you do now, that they were simple, that they were primitive." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We were wrong." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Council Member Reed, known for her direct approach, stood up. "Elder Gray, with all due respect, your stories of Earth are well known. But times have changed. We are the Galactic Federation now, not a single species making first contact. Our technology is far beyond anything these humans could imagine." Elder Gray pulled out an old device from his robes. With shaking hands, he activated it, and a hologram appeared in the center of the hall. It showed old footage of a human city from 3 centuries ago, then shifted to scenes of warfare that made several council members gasp. "In the span of just 100 years, Elder Gray continued, they went from simple combustion engines to nuclear power. While other species took millennia to make similar advances, they did it in decades. Their ability to adapt, to learn, to overcome challenges." He shook his head. "It's unlike anything we've seen before." Commander Stone stepped forward, his pristine uniform reflecting the hall's lights. "Elder Gray, we've studied their current technology level. They're still using fossil fuels. Their space vessels are primitive. Their weapons would barely scratch our shields. That's what you see on the surface," Elder Gray replied. "But let me show you something else." He changed the hologram to display various human inventions and their dates of creation. "Look at their pattern of development. It's not linear like other species. They make massive leaps forward, often in times of conflict or crisis." But the council had already made up its mind. Council Member Reed spoke again. "We appreciate your historical perspective, Elder Gray, but the expansion will proceed as planned. The Sol system will become part of the Federation, and its inhabitants will be guided into the galactic community like all other developing species." Elder Gray switched off his hologram, his shoulders dropping slightly. He had seen this attitude before, this certainty of superiority. "Then at least let me share one last piece of information," he said quietly. "During our brief encounter with Earth, we lost 3 battleships. Not to their weapons. They had none that could reach space at the time. We lost them because humans found a way to turn our own technology against us in ways we had never imagined possible." The hall grew quiet again, but this time the silence held a different quality. For just a moment, doubt crossed Commander Stone's face. "You see them as primitive because they haven't followed the same path as other species," Elder Gray concluded. "But that's precisely what makes them dangerous. They don't think like us. They don't act like us. And most importantly," he looked directly at Commander Stone, "they don't fight like us." As Elder Gray left the speaking platform, the council quickly moved on to other matters. His warning was filed away as an historical curiosity, nothing more. But as he walked slowly back to his chambers, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Federation was about to learn a very costly lesson about underestimating humanity. Behind him, the council continued their discussions about the upcoming expansion into the Sol system, unaware that they were about to wake a sleeping giant. Commander Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Dawn, as it emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. His crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the sensors as they began their approach toward the third planet. "Sir," called out the sensor officer, "I'm picking up some unusual readings." Stone walked over to the display, expecting to see the primitive satellites his briefing had mentioned. Instead, his eyes widened at the data streaming across the screen. "This can't be right," he muttered. "Run the scan again." The officer did as ordered, but the results remained the same. The space around Earth was far from empty. Multiple orbital stations circled the planet, their design unlike anything in the Federation database. Ships of various sizes moved between Earth and its moon, while others traveled toward what appeared to be colonies on Mars. "Sir," another crew member called out, "we're detecting artificial structures on Mars and Venus. They've terraformed part of Venus's upper atmosphere." Stone felt a chill run down his spine as he remembered Elder Gray's warning. But he quickly pushed the thought aside. "Open a channel to the Federation Council," he ordered. "They need to see this." Before the communication officer could comply, a new voice filled the bridge. "Greetings, Federation vessel Stellar Dawn. This is Earth Space Control. Please maintain your current position while we verify your credentials." The bridge crew looked at each other in shock. Not only did the humans know who they were, but they were also speaking perfect galactic standard. "This is Commander Stone of the Galactic Federation," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "We've come to welcome Earth into the galactic community." A laugh came through the speakers. "That's very kind of you, Commander. However, we'd prefer to discuss such matters through proper diplomatic channels. Our representative will be arriving shortly to greet you." Stone watched in amazement as a sleek vessel appeared seemingly out of nowhere near his ship. Its hull seemed to shimmer, somehow both there and not there at the same time. The sensor officer frantically reported that they hadn't detected any approach. The ship had simply materialized. A woman's voice came through the comm system. "Commander Stone, I'm Ambassador Green. Welcome to the Sol system. I must say, you're a bit late to the party." Stone struggled to maintain his diplomatic composure. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. The humans were supposed to be awestruck by their advanced technology, grateful for the Federation's guidance. Instead, they seemed almost amused. "Perhaps," Ambassador Green continued, "you'd like to dock with our Ganymede station. We can show you some of our recent developments. We're particularly proud of our quantum phase technology, though I notice you're still using standard hyperdrives." The casual mention of technology that the Federation had deemed theoretically impossible made Stone's head spin. He watched as the sensor display showed more human ships appearing from nowhere, taking positions around his fleet with precise coordination. "Your ships," he said carefully. "We didn't detect their approach." "Yes, phase shifting can be tricky to spot if you don't know what to look for," Ambassador Green replied cheerfully. "We've found it quite useful for exploration. You never know what's out there in space after all." As Stone gave orders to follow the human vessel to Ganymede, he couldn't help but notice how his mighty Federation fleet suddenly seemed less impressive. The humans hadn't just reached space. They'd mastered it in ways the Federation hadn't even imagined possible. In his quarters later that day, Stone recorded a message to the Council. "Honorable members," he began, "I regret to inform you that our intelligence about Earth was significantly outdated. Elder Gray's warnings." He paused, swallowing his pride. Elder Gray's warnings appear to have been justified. The humans aren't a primitive species in need of our guidance. There's something else entirely. Through his viewport, he watched Earth's moon glowing in the distance, now dotted with cities under massive domes. Somewhere in the Federation's grand halls, he knew, Elder Gray was probably shaking his head and saying, "I told you so." The meeting room aboard Ganymede Station hummed with quiet tension. On one side of the long table sat the Federation delegation, led by Commander Stone and his diplomatic team. On the other side sat the Earth representatives, looking surprisingly relaxed in their simple uniforms. "These terms are standard for all new members of the Federation," said Head Diplomat White, sliding a datapad across the table. "We offer protection, technology sharing, and access to galactic trade routes. In return, we ask for resource rights and military oversight." Ambassador Green picked up the pad, glanced at it briefly, and passed it to her colleagues. They shared knowing looks that made Commander Stone increasingly uncomfortable. "Interesting," Ambassador Green said, tapping her fingers on the table. "But I'm afraid these terms won't work for us." She touched a control panel, and a hologram appeared above the table. "Let me show you why." The hologram displayed a Federation battlecruiser, rotating slowly in the air. "This is your latest model, correct? Launched just 2 years ago." Without waiting for an answer, she continued, "We've noticed a critical flaw in the shield harmonics. Would you like to see our solution?" The Federation delegates stared in shock. That information was highly classified. Even more surprising was that the humans had not only identified the flaw, but had already developed a fix. "How did you?" White started, but Ambassador Green was already moving on. "We've also made some improvements to your faster-than-light drive design," she said, bringing up new schematics. "Your current efficiency is around 82%, correct? We've managed to push it to 97% using a modified quantum field." Commander Stone felt his face growing hot. "Ambassador, these technologies are Federation property. How did you obtain this information?" A man at the end of the Earth delegation table spoke up. "We didn't obtain it, Commander. We developed most of these technologies independently. When we detected your ships using similar but less efficient systems, we simply compared notes." "Impossible," White declared, standing up. "These technologies took the Federation centuries to develop." "Yes," Ambassador Green said softly. "We know. We've studied the Federation's development patterns. You see, that's the fundamental difference between us. You follow a linear path of technological advancement. She smiled. We take shortcuts." She pressed another button, and the hologram changed to show hundreds of small satellites scattered throughout the Sol system. "These are our quantum observers. They've been watching your ships since you entered our system. In fact, they've been watching Federation ships for the past 50 years. The blood drained from Commander Stone's face. 50 years. "Did you think you were the first Federation ships to visit Sol?" Ambassador Green asked. "We detected your scout ships decades ago. We simply chose not to reveal ourselves until we were ready." The Federation delegation sat in stunned silence as Ambassador Green stood and walked to a window overlooking Jupiter's massive form. "Now let's discuss more appropriate terms for cooperation between equals, shall we?" She turned back to the table, her expression serious. "We don't need Federation protection. We've developed our own defensive capabilities. We don't need your technology. In many areas, ours has surpassed yours. And as for resource rights," she gestured to the view of Jupiter, where massive mining platforms could be seen harvesting the gas giant's resources. "We've already established our own extraction operations." White looked desperately at his data pad, then at Commander Stone. Everything they had prepared, every negotiating strategy, had been based on the assumption of technological superiority. Without that advantage, they had nothing to offer. "However," Ambassador Green continued, her voice gentler now, "we are very interested in cultural exchange and mutual defense agreements. Perhaps we could start there." As the meeting continued, Commander Stone thought again of Elder Gray's warnings. The old man hadn't just been warning them about human technology. He'd been warning them about human thinking. While the Federation had spent centuries carefully advancing step by step, humanity had leapfrogged ahead, taking risks and making breakthroughs that Federation scientists had deemed impossible. They hadn't just miscalculated Earth's technological level. They had fundamentally misunderstood humanity's approach to progress itself. Commander Stone paced the bridge of the stellar dawn, his frustration growing with each step. The diplomatic talks had gone nowhere, and the Federation Council demanded results. In a final desperate move, he had positioned his entire fleet in attack formation above Earth. "Send the message," he ordered his communications officer. The view screen lit up with Ambassador Green's face. She looked unsurprised, almost expectant. "Ambassador," Stone said, trying to sound confident, "the Federation cannot accept Earth's continued defiance. You see our fleet. You know our capabilities. We demand your immediate cooperation, or we will be forced to demonstrate our power." There was a long pause. Then Ambassador Green smiled. "Commander Stone, look out your window." Stone turned toward the large bridge viewport and felt his heart stop. Where there had been empty space moments before, hundreds of ships now hung in perfect formation around his fleet. They seemed to shimmer in and out of existence, their hulls reflecting the starlight in impossible ways. "While you were arranging your ships," Ambassador Green said calmly, "we took the liberty of moving our home defense fleet into position. We've been cloaked the entire time." "Impossible," Stone whispered. "Our sensors would have detected." "Your sensors can only detect what they're designed to detect, Commander." She pressed a button off-screen, and suddenly Stone's tactical display exploded with new information. Thousands of readings appeared, showing weapons, ships, and defense platforms that had been invisible moments before. "We're not just around your fleet," she continued. "We're between your ships. Some of our smaller vessels are actually inside your formation. Have been since you arrived." The bridge crew frantically checked their instruments, confirming the impossible truth. Human ships were everywhere, their technology so advanced it had made them completely invisible to Federation systems. "This is your final warning, Commander," a new voice said. The screen split to show Admiral Black of Earth's Defense Force. "Remove your fleet from Earth space immediately." Stone straightened his uniform, trying to maintain his dignity. "The Federation doesn't respond to threats, Admiral." "This isn't a threat," Admiral Black replied. "It's a courtesy. Unlike you, we don't believe in demonstrations of power. If we wanted to disable your fleet, we would have done it the moment you entered our system." As if to prove his point, every system on the stellar dawn suddenly went dark. The mighty Federation flagship floated powerless in space for exactly 10 seconds before humming back to life. "That was one ship," Admiral Black said. "Would you like to see what we can do to your entire fleet?" Stone looked at his tactical display again. The human ships had moved even closer, their positions making it clear they could target every Federation vessel simultaneously. He thought of Elder Grey's warning about humanity's approach to warfare, how they didn't think like other species, didn't fight like them either. "Commander," Ambassador Green spoke again, her voice gentler now. "We don't want conflict. We never did. But we've studied your history. We know the Federation's pattern of peaceful integration often leads to effective subjugation of younger species. We decided long ago that wouldn't be our fate." Stone looked at his crew, saw the fear in their eyes, and made his decision. "Fleet Command, this is Commander Stone. All ships, withdraw to minimum safe distance for hyperspace jump." As the Federation ships retreated, Ambassador Green sent one final message. "The Federation Council will receive our terms within the hour. We suggest they read them carefully. Oh, and Commander, please tell Elder Grey he was right about us. We'd very much like to speak with him." Stone-washed Earth grow smaller on his view screen, its seemingly peaceful blue surface now far more threatening than any weapon he had ever encountered. The Federation had come expecting to find primitives. Instead, they'd found masters of space and war who had simply chosen peace, until now. In his quarters later, Stone recorded in his log, "We didn't just underestimate their technology. We underestimated their patience, their planning, and their resolve. The Federation wanted to make humanity bow. Instead, we may end up bowing to them." The Federation Council chamber erupted in chaos as the holographic display showed yet another member world requesting Earth's assistance. This time it was the Centauri system, one of the Federation's oldest members. "This is outrageous. Council Member Reed shouted over the noise. "They're deliberately undermining our authority." Elder Gray sat quietly in his corner, watching the scene unfold. In the months since Commander Stone's failed show of force, Earth had revealed more and more of its achievements. Each revelation sent new shockwaves through the Federation. "The humans have solved our energy crisis," a scientist was saying, displaying data from Earth's fusion reactors. "Their design is 3 times more efficient than ours, and they're willing to share it freely with any world that needs it." Another counselor stood up. "They've already begun installing their medical pods in the outer colonies. Disease rates have dropped by 60% in just 2 weeks." Reed slammed her hand on the table. "Don't you see what they're doing? They're buying loyalty, turning our own members against us." "No," Elder Gray finally spoke, his voice cutting through the chaos. "They're doing what we should have done centuries ago. They're helping because they can, not because it benefits them." The chamber doors opened, and Ambassador Green walked in, accompanied by a team of human scientists. The council fell silent. "Honorable Council," she began, "we've completed our survey of Federation space. We've identified 37 worlds facing immediate environmental crisis, 52 systems with critical resource shortages, and over 100 colonies struggling with basic infrastructure." She gestured, and her team began distributing data pads to the council members. "These are our proposed solutions. We can begin implementation immediately, at no cost to the affected worlds." "And what do you want in return?" Reed asked suspiciously. Ambassador Green smiled. "Nothing. That's not how Earth operates. We believe that lifting others uplifts everyone." One of the human scientists stepped forward. "We've also discovered some concerning flaws in the Federation's faster-than-light communication network. With your permission, we'd like to upgrade it. The new system would reduce transmission delays from hours to seconds." The council members looked at each other uneasily. Earth had already demonstrated its superior technology in countless ways, but this was different. The communication network was the backbone of Federation control. "And you would control this network?" Reed asked. "No," Ambassador Green replied. "We'll teach your engineers how to build and maintain it themselves. Knowledge shouldn't be hoarded." Elder Gray watched the humans carefully. He remembered his own species' encounter with Earth centuries ago. They had been just as arrogant as the Federation, just as certain of their superiority. But where his people had retreated in fear after discovering humanity's potential, the Federation was being offered a chance to learn and grow. A message flashed across the Council's main screen. 3 more systems were requesting Earth's assistance with their failing crops. The humans had apparently developed a way to accelerate plant growth in harsh conditions. "We can't stop them," Reed admitted quietly to her fellow council members. "Their technology is too advanced, their influence is spreading too quickly, and worst of all, they're actually helping people." Ambassador Green turned to Elder Gray. "Your warning to the council was correct, Elder. Humanity is different, but perhaps not in the way you feared. We don't seek to conquer or control. We seek to elevate, to share, to grow together." As the council debated their next move, reports continued to stream in from across Federation space. Human medical teams were curing diseases thought incurable. Their engineers were solving problems that had plagued worlds for generations. Their teachers were sharing knowledge freely, helping other species advance beyond their limitations. The Federation had expected to find a primitive species to control. Instead, they had found teachers, helpers, and innovators who were transforming the galaxy not through force, but through generosity and knowledge. The tables hadn't just turned. They had been completely reset. The emergency council session stretched into its 3rd day. The Grand Chamber, once a symbol of Federation power, now felt more like a courtroom where the Federation itself stood trial. "Another 12 systems have declared their independence this morning," announced Council Member Reed, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "They're calling themselves the Earth Cooperative now." Commander Stone, recently demoted after his failed show of force against Earth, stood before the council. "It's worse than that. Our own military is beginning to fracture. 3 fleet commanders have already pledged their ships to Earth's defense force. The council members stirred uncomfortably in their seats. On the massive screens around them, reports continued to stream in. Federation trade routes were being abandoned in favor of Earth's more efficient shipping networks. Federation technologies were being replaced by superior human designs. Even their most loyal worlds were turning away. How did we not see this coming? One counselor asked, breaking the tense silence. How did they advance so far beyond us without our knowledge? Elder Gray, now seated in a position of honor rather than his usual corner, spoke up. Because you looked for advancement in the wrong places. You expected them to follow your path, to build as you built, to think as you thought. But humans, he smiled, humans are masters of the unexpected. The doors opened, and Ambassador Green entered with Admiral Black. The council members straightened in their seats, some trying to hide their fear, others their hope. Honorable Council, Ambassador Green began, we come with a proposition from Earth. She activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed a new structure for galactic governance, one that made the council members gasp. You want to dissolve the Federation? Reed asked in disbelief. No, Admiral Black replied. We want to transform it. The old Federation was built on control and dependency. We propose a new alliance based on cooperation and mutual growth. The hologram shifted, showing how the new system would work. Each world would maintain its independence while participating in a shared network of knowledge, resources, and defense. But the Federation would lose its authority, one counselor protested. Authority based on suppression of advancement isn't authority at all. Ambassador Green said firmly. It's tyranny. We offer something better. True partnership. Commander Stone stepped forward. They're right. I've seen what Earth can do. They could have conquered us weeks ago. Instead, they're offering us a chance to grow. The chamber erupted in heated debate. Some council members argued for accepting Earth's terms immediately. Others wanted to resist, to maintain the old order. A few even suggested trying to fight, though the idea died quickly when Admiral Black quietly displayed the current count of Earth's fleet strength. There's something else you should know, Ambassador Green said, silencing the room. We've detected signals from beyond the galaxy's edge. Something is coming, something that will test all of us. We can face it together as equals, or we can remain divided and weak. Elder Gray stood slowly, his age showing in every movement. 300 years ago, my people discovered Earth. We ran away in fear of what they might become. Today, we see what they actually became. Not conquerors, but teachers. Not destroyers, but builders. He turned to face the council. The choice before us is simple. Adapt or become irrelevant. Earth has shown us a better way. The only question is whether we're wise enough to accept it. The council chamber fell silent as the members contemplated their options. The Federation they had known for centuries was ending. But perhaps they realized that wasn't such a bad thing after all. Outside the chamber, ships from 100 worlds hung in space around the Federation capital, their designs as varied as their origins. But more and more of them bore the mark of Earth's influence, not as a sign of submission, but as a badge of progress. 1 year had passed since the day Earth proposed the transformation of the Federation. The Grand Council chamber had changed. Gone was the raised platform that had placed council members above others. Instead, a circular table dominated the room, with representatives from all worlds seated as equals. Elder Gray sat between Ambassador Green and Commander Stone, who had become Earth's strongest ally in the reformed Federation. They watched as holographic displays showed the progress of their combined fleet at the galaxy's edge, preparing for the approaching threat from deep space. The warning systems Earth installed are working perfectly, Stone reported, pointing to the data streams. We'll have months of advance notice before they arrive. A younger council member, one who had once laughed at Elder Gray's warnings, spoke up. To think we almost missed this threat because of our own pride. Without Earth's sensors, we would have had no idea they were coming. Ambassador Green smiled. The best defense is cooperation, something humanity learned the hard way through our own history. The chamber's displays shifted to show various scenes from across the galaxy. On one screen, human teachers worked alongside Federation scientists, sharing knowledge that had once been jealously guarded. On another, Earth's advanced ships protected trade routes that were now open to all worlds. Reports from the outer colonies are excellent, announced Council member Reed, who had become one of the strongest supporters of the new system. The combined technology of Earth and the Federation has solved their environmental crisis. Population health is at an all-time high. Elder Gray watched with satisfaction as more reports came in. Worlds that had once been bitter rivals now worked together, sharing resources and knowledge. The Federation's military, once used to enforce compliance, now served as a peacekeeping force, protecting the weak and helping the troubled. We have detected 3 new spacefaring civilizations approaching Federation space, a sensor operator announced. Their technology levels are similar to what Earth's was a century ago. How shall we proceed? Someone asked, looking toward Earth's representatives. Ambassador Green stood. We will welcome them as equals, help them advance at their own pace, and invite them to join our alliance when they're ready. We will not repeat the mistakes of the past. Commander Stone nodded in agreement. The old Federation would have seen them as subjects to control. We now know better. The Chamber's mood turned serious as new data about the approaching deep space threat appeared on the main screen. But there was no fear in the room, only determination. Earth's greatest gift to the Federation hadn't been its advanced technology or its innovative solutions. It had been the lesson that true strength comes from unity and mutual respect. 1 year ago, Elder Gray said, his voice carrying across the chamber, I sat in this room mourning about Earth's potential. I was right about their power, but wrong about what they would do with it. He looked around at the transformed chamber, at the faces of former enemies now working together. They didn't conquer us. They taught us. They didn't destroy the Federation. They helped us become something better. Ambassador Green touched a control, and the galaxy map expanded to show thousands of worlds, all connected by lines of communication and cooperation. The threat we face from deep space is real, she said, but together we are stronger than any enemy. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, not our technology, but our unity. As the council session ended, Elder Gray walked slowly to the chamber's massive window. He watched ships of all designs moving through space, their crews working together regardless of origin. The Federation hadn't just survived its encounter with Earth, it had been reborn. In the end, they had all learned the most important lesson. True power lies not in domination, but in cooperation. The species that had once laughed at warnings about Earth now stood with humanity as equals, ready to face whatever challenges the universe might bring. And somewhere out in the darkness between the stars, something was coming that would test their newfound unity. But this time, they would face it together.